Hello and welcome to this special video discussing the foreign investment in the exploration industry. Today we would have an interview with Mr. Charles Devenish. He is a well-known mineral explorer in India. He has over 45 years of experience in the mineral exploration industry, which includes interests and exposure in Australia, Burma, India, Angola and Vietnam. Charles Devenish has experience in the mining boom in Australia. He was the founder of two public listed companies in the 1980s and 1990s that pioneered diamond exploration in Australia. For 38 years, he was the principal of Charles Edward Jewellers. Charles continues as an active role in the Indian mineral exploration industry. He is based in Bangalore and mentors Geomasseur Services, India's only public listed gold exploration company, Deccan Gold Mines Limited. Under his stewardship, these two companies have made the only major gold discoveries made in India by the private sector. Today we will be talking to him about how he has seen the mineral boom, mining boom, mineral exploration boom come through in Australia, how he walked from France to India, how he got interested in mineral exploration, how he got interested in India, and what has been the highlights of his journey doing mineral exploration. Welcome, Charles. I'd like to take your consent that we'll be recording this conversation and putting it in public domain at some point. Essentially for all the stakeholders and students and people, anybody who's interested in this topic to have a bit of knowledge or whatever we can disseminate. So
first, I'm totally okay with that, no problem.
Excellent. So you have been involved while the Australian mineral boom actually started. Can you tell me something about it, your experiences, and how did you...
I think, very important to know that I started knowing nothing. I might add, I still know nothing too. A lifetime, 55 years. I know how to make mistakes. And I think this is very important to anyone coming into this industry. The mistakes are as valuable as your successes. And without the mistakes, you never learn anything. But I started in 1964. My first project was a small emerald mine where a prospector brought some beryl crystals into my shop. And from that, I started a very small scale mine, emerald mine up in the Pilbara. But I think what really was of interest, I was very amateurishly doing prospecting with very little knowledge of what I was doing. And it started off mainly with semi-precious stones because we had a jewelry business. We were interested in that. And what was very fascinating was to see the old ghost towns where, 100 years ago, there were booming communities. You could go to places like Coolgardie, and where they had trams operating up and down in the local town there, and they had pubs, and all sorts of gambling casinos and brothels, and you name it. And as you went through those old mining areas, you could imagine what it would have been like in those days. I had no concept of what was going to happen in the future. I couldn't see the future. I couldn't believe what was to eventually happen, which was the advent of a mining boom, which was based on really a very good mining policy in West Australia, where they created a good mining policy. And that was the beginning of, the gold boom came, we had the nickel boom, then we had the iron ore boom. And all of these little ghost towns that I'd seen and visited all around Kalgoorlie, all flourished and boomed. And in fact, Kalgoorlie was very, very similar to Kola. I'd say it was identical in the way it was all run down and closed and nothing really happened. There's one gold mine operating. As I was saying to you previously, to buy shares in a company that went from 20 cents to $270 was an eye-opener. And that was the beginning of our mining boom. And of course, now to be in India for the last 26 years, it's exactly the same. It's deja vu. I see ancient diggings. I see all the amazing things in India, what I saw in West Australia, but I think it's much bigger here.
Wow, that's saying something. From our studies in geology and tectonics of Gondwana land, we know that there was a geological continuity from India, the eastern part of India, onto Western Australia. So, in that context, how do you see this continuity or geological continuity manifest itself for the mineral development of mineral potential and mining in India?
It's a magic story. And because I've worked in Africa, I've worked in Angola, I've seen it all. I started the first diamond mine in Zimbabwe, and I've sort of had a very good vision of Australia and the African continent. And then sitting in the middle of this is this magic bit of geology called India. And I've walked around southern India and I must have looked at least 20 of the diamond kimberlites down there. There's nothing like this in Australia, nothing. And there are 32 kimberlites that are diamondiferous, very, very close to our Janagiri gold project. Now, Australia hasn't got anything like that. And I don't think Angola has what this country has. I think this is better than Angola. And this is why I think I'm talking about diamonds now, why the potential here is so big. We seem to have a bit of the good stuff from Australia and from Africa. And I've not seen such a big opportunity in all my life. I mean, I think the opportunity in Australia was enormous. I think the Canadian model was enormous, and I was involved with a listed company on the Toronto Stock Exchange in the early years, and I saw all of that. But I think India is better and bigger.
Well, that's saying something. So,
Yeah.
and okay, so when did you figure out? When did you get interested in India, and how did you manage to get? I mean, there has been a bit of red tape even in early days, even more. So in 1993 or so, when you get started in India.
I think it's important if we're addressing young people. I first came to India in 1950. I'm just trying to think. 58. I was 17, and I started off from Calais in France, and I started walking, and I got all the way to Calcutta. I might add. I think I was 6 to 7 months on the road. I walked most of the way.
All of it walking from France to India.
And when I came to India and I walked through India, I was totally carried away. But I ended up in West Australia, and I got associated with geologists. Now, geologists are crazy guys. They're all dreamers, but they're creative people. And I think a good geologist is a bit like a good artist. He can see things and paint things, and he has to have a very creative mind. And as a dear friend of mine, geomorphologist in South Africa, he always refers to it as geological poetry. And I think geology is very poetic. And it's a very beautiful profession. I'd love to have been a geologist. So in the course of many years, I met different geologists, and one particular geologist called Harry Mason came to my office, and I had been starting to look at diamonds in India, in Orissa. And I'd come back from a trip, and I was introduced to this guy, and it was this guy who really pushed the Gondwana land story, and he'd been to India and was very excited about its possibilities. So we formed an Indian company, and we attended the International Roundtable Conference in early 94, I think it was March 94 in Delhi. And that's when we really got integrated into the India story.
Please tell something more about the roundtable that you are mentioning. Who attended that roundtable? What was the topic, and what did it lead to? What actions did you take as a result of participating into that conference, into that roundtable meeting?
All the major mining companies turned up. BHP was there, De Beers were there, Rio Tinto were there, Glencoe was there. There were a lot of majors, and then there were a lot of miners. There's small companies like us. And many promises were made by the Indian government, all of which were broken, but the promises were made. We made a decision to cover all the major greenstone belts of India with large reconnaissance permits. I think we covered over 150,000 square kilometers. And I'd like to say to anyone listening that it's very important in whatever you're going to do, think big, don't think small, because we all tend to underestimate our own abilities. And I think we need to always have a big picture of where we're going. We might not reach that big picture, but we need to think on a big picture. So we took out those big areas, and then we took out smaller areas inside those big reconnaissance permits over known hotspots, like Kola, Patti, and all these known gold deposits where the ancients had been working. And we did this because we knew that eventually the big companies would do their due diligences slowly. And when they did, they'd realize we'd monopolized India and that they'd kick up a stink, which they did. So we reverted back to our small licenses, which covered most of the key areas that we were interested in.
That was a smart move. It's great to have beaten the large companies, large mining companies at their own game and securing a lot of tenements. But unlike large companies, smaller companies don't have too much capital, and securing such large areas and actually maintaining them, retaining them, working on them would have taken up a lot of capital. So tell me something about your fundraising experiences. How did you manage to finance all this activity?
It was very easy to sell the geology because it was such a no-brainer that here was a bit of geology that no one had done any serious work on. So that part was easy. So the story was this, and actually my major investor, Mark Creasy, came on board. Now Mark's the #1 successful prospector in Australia today. He's made himself a few $1 billion in the process. And Mark had seen a film of a queue of investors outside the Bombay Stock Exchange going all the way down the road and round the corner. And he was so amazed by it. When I went and told him my story, he said, well, I think I'll put a bit of money into that, which he did. And it was not hard to sell a vision of what could happen in India. If Indians, and Indians do, gamble on the bowling of a single cricket ball, they will most certainly gamble on mineral exploration, and particularly gold and diamond exploration. So I personally believe, and I may see it if we get the right mineral policy, I think India will have the biggest mining boom the world has ever seen. It'll be much bigger than Australia, and it'll be much bigger than anything that's happened in Canada. And all it needs is a few very simple changes to the present Mineral Act. And I think the retail capital market of India could supply all the funding needed to get this mining industry going. I don't think it needs foreign investment at this stage. I think it needs Indian investment. And particularly Indians who are addicted to the physical metal, gold. And the best way to do that is to drill holes in the ground. And when you drill holes in the ground, and you say you've got so many meters of intersections at so many grams, and you start telling the market this, you'll get immediate gratification. And I think we will, if we were to drill at North Kola, for instance, and one particular area there where we did some trenching, and I remember we got a 81-gram sample in the trench that I sampled, and that's sitting up there untouched. It's never been explored. When the market hears about this, I think it'll have a dramatic impact, and we all need to be involved in this.
That's interesting that you say that about Kolar. Growing up as young geologist, studying geology, We have all heard of the stories of Kolar, how is it has been an old gold mine and how it is the deepest gold mine in the world. And it's interesting that you found a 81 gram per ton sample in a trench near North Kolar. Now, North Kolar is a further extension of the Kolar gold field, and the production grades there have been 2 grams or 4 grams per ton, average as far as I remember. So, what do you think of Kolar Greenstone Belt?
Greenstone belt on the whole planet. That's my personal feeling.
Wow, wow, that's
Uh, and I'm longing to see the drills get up there and start working and the geophysics going. All in that northern Kolar during the rainy season, there are so many gold panners up there panning for gold in the creeks and stuff. It's gold everywhere.
So, should I mark it up as a creative geologist thinking?
I'm just a crazy sort of speculator who's been a jeweler all his life, who loves a country called India, and I see such a huge future here, and I hope young geologists are going to come along and look at listing junior companies on the Bombay Stock Exchange and doing all the things that we did in Australia.
Excellent.
And I think it'll be better and it'll be more exciting. And I think the opportunities are going to be limitless if Mr. Modi will give us a policy that we can work.
We'll get to the policing thing. I have one small question before that. Staying on the topic of creative geologists, how was your experience of working with Indian geologists? How did you build your technical team? Was there any training requirement or a special training requirement that Indian geologists had to undergo? Were they capable enough to be able to work in the field without training? Or what are the essential training requirements that Indian universities may want to take up for the students to become very productive, very early stage in their exploration career?
Very interesting question, because young geologists would come to us for a job and we'd advertise for geologists, and many of these young guys now are very successfully employed around the world, I might say. And they would sit in our boardroom, and we'd had a panel of geologists who would cross-examine them and, you know, give them a hard time. And some of them used to come up to my office afterwards and have a chat and introduce themselves. And I got one sample of ore, gold ore, which it's got physical gold in the ore. You can see the gold if you look. And I'd always pass this to these young geos, and they'd get loops and things out, and they'd examine this thing. And not once would they mention the fact they could see gold in it. And when I would say, by the way, you know, there's that yellow stuff there is gold, and their eyes would pop out of their head. They're, no, is it really? I said, yep, and that's what we're hunting for, boys. And but yes, interestingly enough, what I find with Indian geologists, they're incredibly quick learners. And so when we brought in Australian geologists who'd had good experience in modern mineral exploration, within 6 months, Indians were picking it up so quick, I can't tell you. And this was anyone coming from overseas were very impressed by the quality of the Indian staff that we had. They all were amazed by them.
Very good and extremely encouraging. Now, what we are trying to do through this Mineral Exploration Academy lecture series is to transmit the most difficult things in education to transmit. That is experience. Experience, as they say, can only be gained, it cannot be transmitted. What we are doing is a small attempt for the students or upcoming students of geology who are interested in mineral exploration to hear the stories of senior explorers or professionals in the field, learn some tips and tricks, and maybe some of the experience will transmit. If nothing else, the attempt will be hopefully successful in making the young graduates a lot more productive and lot productive quicker in the field for the mineral exploration companies. We would be very happy if we are even partially able to achieve that, or even if we are able to create a curiosity in students to know more, to understand more, to understand the science and the art of mineral exploration. So, in the long run, maybe there would not be any need to bring Australian geologists all the way here or from elsewhere. Maybe we conduct this series of video interviews with those people and bring them in for a shorter period for hands-on understanding and training in field. Or could you suggest any other model, or what would be your suggestions on how to taking it up? I know we are going off script, and this is something new that has just coming to my mind. So let's get your views on it.
I mean, it's very interesting again you asked that, because I believe travel is incredibly important for young people. And if a young geologist could spend a holiday, a working holiday, for 1 or 2 months in West Australia, just visiting gold projects and meeting other geologists, I think it would give him an enormous start and would open his mind up to all the possibilities that are here. It would be a very quick lesson. And quite honestly, I think that if we get Janagiri going, I would insist, if once we've got some cash flows going, that any young geologist coming in is sent to Australia for, a 1 month, 2 months working holiday.
Are such opportunities available with Australian companies, or do the Australian companies in Western Australia encourage such things? And
I think they would. I think, it's not a bad idea. I've never thought about this. I'm pretty sure that if we approached Australian companies in the right way, they might be quite interested to look at funding maybe sort of traveling scholarships like that. I think we should look at that. I mean, connections there, so it wouldn't be difficult to arrange this. We could talk to them. We have all the connections.
Charles, many exploration teams have tasted success in gold exploration under your leadership. Many of our young geologists are interested in gold exploration. So, can you give me some tips and tricks, or what you have done to be so successful in gold exploration in India?
First of all, to understand, I'm not a geologist, and that's probably a benefit in some ways, because I don't fall in love with projects very easily, and it's been one of the dangers I've seen of geologists who fall in love with their project, and they genuinely believe in it. But if they really took a practical, business-like approach to it, they realised that it wasn't such a good deal after all. So learning to differentiate between what was a good business deal and what wasn't a good business deal, I think is very, very important. And I've had the wool pulled over my eyes so many times by geologists. And I don't think it's done in the wrong way. I think they genuinely believe what they're telling you. And that certainly happened in India to me. It's nothing new. And I'm still learning on that front. But we've had some serious successes here in India, and I suppose the Ganajor mine is probably one of the most interesting ones, because it was discovered under agricultural land. There are no diggings or ancient things there, and that was a discovery by our Dr. Vasudev, and I give him full marks on that. He did a brilliant job. It's a very good discovery. It's going to make a lot of money if we can get it going. And my point to the government is, don't, just use common sense, get it going, create jobs, create wealth. So that mine has been blocked, but we think it's going to find itself. And also in that Shimoga Basin, we've made a number of smaller discoveries, which have been very exciting. North Hatti, we've done a lot of drilling up there. We've done a lot of work on that Hatti North. Huge potential. All the reefs from Hatti go to the north onto our ground. All of that area is covered by us. So I think Hatti is going to be a very important new mining centre. A very good geologist friend of mine, by the way, who had been working for Vedanta. The night he left India, he came to stay with me, and I asked him to write me a note on the Hutty greenstone belt and compare it with an Australian greenstone belt. And he took the Wiluna greenstone belt in West Australia, which I think has now produced something like 12 million ounces of gold. And he compared it with the Hutty belt. And in the morning when I got up, he had a little report ready for me. And what he's predicting in that is 5 to 10 million ounces for the Hutty belt. Now, this is serious business. This is serious business. This is the stuff that's going to make India a serious gold producer.
Yeah, I mean, 8 to 10 million ounces is definitely world class.
World class. World
Yeah.
class.
So
So to me, I see all these things as huge opportunities for young Indians coming up now. And I've battled for 26 years here. I think India was much harder than Angola in the middle of a civil war. We've been successful in Burma in setting up a small zinc mine there and a smelter. We've been successful in Zimbabwe. We were successful in the United States. But here in India, it's been extraordinarily difficult. But I think that's the big but. Because it's been so difficult, I think it's going to change. And when it changes, I think it'll be a mega opportunity. And we need to get young people 100% involved with this.
So considering all these excellent opportunities that exist in India, what do you think would be the ultimate potential, blue sky potential for gold exploration in India?
Basically, the Hutty greenstone belt's got enormous potential. The Kola greenstone belt's got enormous potential. These will all be big mines. 100% they're going to be big mining centres. The Janagiri gold mine, which we're involved with, and we have a mining license for, enormous upside. We've just scratched the surface out there. So there are 3 major gold fields we're just starting with. The Ramagiri gold fields, God knows what's there. No one's really done any serious exploration there. I think there's an enormous opportunity for small-scale mines, clusters of small-scale gold mines. I think the Australian model and the New Zealand model, where they had a central processing plant and then small mines would bring their ores in for processing, is a fantastic way for India to go. We could probably, I reckon I could find you 100 small mines easily within our portfolio.
Now,
and that's the sort of thing we need to look at, because out of those small mines will come big mines.
now getting back to our experience transfer thing, what would be your advice to the young geologists?
What would be my advice to what?
To the young geologists in India?
Do what I did, which is go and explore. I mean, even if you don't have lots of money, doesn't have to stop you from exploring. There's a lot of data in your universities. You should be looking at that data. You should be looking at opportunities, seeing how you can commercially take some of that data and do something with it. Hanama Prasad, Dr. Hanama Prasad, who heads up our company, he made a major nickel discovery. Okay, Mr. Modi's policy has, drowned it. But, India doesn't produce any nickel. And I keep writing to the defense ministers on this matter that we have no strategic metal stockpile. And we've got to get in there and bloody well do it. And you guys in the university should start doing a lot of work on nickel, carbonatites. We need to look at carbonatites for rare earths. Zeolite. Zeolite's got phenomenal possibilities for agriculture. Slow release fertilizers. I can see a whole ball game there. So I think a lot of work can be done sitting at home and just researching. And then go and have a holiday. Go out and do a bit of prospecting yourself. Buy yourself a gold pan. Go and do some sampling in creeks. Get someone to show you how to do it. And, we took on one guy in Chhattisgarh who was a tribal guy. He's a geologist. And he made a big discovery for us there. He made it, no one else. It was completely his discovery. It's called Coursera. It's a beautiful, very high grade deposit, gold deposit. So I think I would be dreaming if I was a young geologist, and I would be researching all the data the GSI has got. Anything you can get your hands on, look at it, see whether there's a commercial opportunity there. Put together these ideas, find an investor to back you and support you. How do you think BHP was formed? Look up the discovery of BHP's lead silver zinc deposit at Broken Hill. Look it up and see. It was just one intelligent prospector who found it. He got a little syndicate of 4 or 5 people, and they listed a company on the Melbourne Stock Exchange and Sydney Stock Exchange, and that became BHP from nothing, absolutely from zero. And those opportunities are here in India today.
So I would advise all our young geologists to take up Charles's advice. He has been the mentor of the Indian, of a full generation of Indian explorers, successfully explored gold deposits all across India and several other mineral deposits. Please also look up some of the case studies or some of the projects that Charles mentions here, especially Jonagiri, Ganajur, North Hatti.
Not to be frightened, feel completely, anyone who wants to can ring us up, no problem.
Thank you, Charles. That is incredibly gracious for you to offer such exposure to the young geologists that would be interested in mineral exploration. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish we'll have more such interviews on different topics and different aspects of mineral exploration in near future. And friends, that was Charles Devenish, global wanderer, global explorer, who fell in love with the potential of mineral exploration and mining in India and has spent a good 26 years and counting, lives in Bangalore, is actively involved with Deccan Gold Mines Limited and Geo Mysore Services. So feel free to write your comments in the section below. Comment on the video, leave your messages. You want to contact Charles, have some questions for him, some questions about mineral exploration that our Mineral Exploration Academy people can answer. Please do give your comments. That's what gives us encouragement and gives us the direction and guidance of what you need. So we attempt to fulfill that. Also, please do subscribe to the channel so that all our latest videos and latest information that we will be uploading in this series and several other series would be reaching you. Thank you so much and goodbye.